All right, everybody. Welcome to Boating Tips Live with MarineMax. Thank you guys for joining us once again. As always, I'm Captain Nick Pavlakis with MarineMax in St. Petersburg. Of course, Captain Keith Lake. What do you say, man?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
So before we get going, guys, here, just don't forget, turn on your notifications, subscribe, Facebook, that's at MarineMax Leisure, Instagram and YouTube at MarineMax Online for all sorts of walkthroughs, and you can actually catch all of these after the fact on YouTube at MarineMax Online once again, and of course, Twitter at MarineMax. So before we get going here, Keith, you do anything cool last week? Any cool deliveries, any new models or anything?
I had a bunch of Boston whalers leave out of here. Just delivered another 33 Outrage, real popular boat right now. What's not to love about a whaler? So, it's been crazy, man. Well, you're in sales. We're selling the heck out of boats right now. So that's what everybody's, can do and wants to do is get out on the water.
Last weekend, I came back from Captiva. I'll get to that a little bit later, but I went in through Southwest Pass and just Passage Key, Egmont. I don't think I've ever seen as many boats out in the water as I did on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's crystal clear right now too. Just a lot of people on Facebook putting videos and stuff out there, out off the rocks, out at the old fort down there at the corner of Egmont.
Yeah,
just snorkeling around and stuff. It's just beautiful right now.
When I came up through Longboat the other day, you would have thought that you were in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
but it's always a little clear there. So it's good to see. It's good to see everybody out on the water having fun, make you feel like there is some normalcy in the world here, and it's not all doom and gloom. So it's good to see, like I said. So don't forget, guys, drop comments and questions below. Let us know your go-to tips. I know we're the experts, but that doesn't mean that we know everything. So if there's a little tidbit or nugget that you wanna add, put it right there in the comments, and we'd love to hear from you. So,
hey Chuck, thanks for jumping on here. Good seeing you, Doc.
Oh yeah, there's Chuck, 48 a kilo guy, good looking boat. Yep. So to start things off today, we're going to start off with some questions from last week. First one, I thought it was a good question. It's a question that we get a lot, especially in captain orientations, and it's a question that's changed a lot over the years, and that's fuel. Fuel, what is the best? Pure gas or mixed with fuel additives? William from Florida said that. We're talking about, road gas, as you might call it, from a gas station. You got marina fuel. There's obviously a big change in price. So with these new outboards, Keith, what is your take on the best thing to do? And if you did want to cut a little bit of corners here and there by putting that road fuel in it, what are some things that you can do, or would you not recommend that at all?
Don't cut corners. You're spending a lot of money. You got a great quality product, right? So spend the extra money. If you got your boat on a trailer or you want to jerry jug it, you want to go and get cans and bring it back and forth, go get the recreational non-ethanol fuel. Stay away from ethanol. It absorbs water. Your boat's on the water. So, you're just adding, no pun, but fuel to the fire, or you're adding more water to it. So if your boat sits for any length of time, the ethanol in that fuel is going to phase separate out, and then you're going to end up running into issues with getting water in your fuel. So it might be, a few cents more, but go to a marina that's on the water that has non-ethanol, regular marine fuel. Go to a Wawa or a gas station that's got non-ethanol, or have your fuel delivered. Nowadays, a lot of these fuel trucks are so competitive, and if you're dependent on the quantity that you're getting, you're going to get a fuel break, a price on the fuel. And call around too. If you're on the water, South St. Pete, there's 5 or 6 different marinas, all within probably 2 miles of each other, whether it's Tierra Verde, O'Neill's, Gulfport, Maximo, Suntex Loggerhead, whatever it's called. There can be a 50 cents a gallon discrepancy in their fuel prices between the different marinas, all right there. So get on the phone, call around, check it out. If you're buying a lot of fuel, it's going to save you some money.
I know we've talked about it a lot too, but I want to say, don't quote me on this, can you see prices of fuel on the Docwa app?
I'm not sure. I'm not certain.
think you can. All right, Bob. I'm here, but have no audio, just videos. I believe I can hear it on my phone. If you guys can hear us just fine and see us just fine, why don't you drop a thumbs up or something in the comments and make sure it's nothing on our end. But I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Joshua just joined us as well.
Right.
So we'll shout out to him. So, hey, why do some people stand backwards when they're docking a boat? That question came from Joshua last week, who's back on here with us today.
To look cool?
You go ahead and go with that one.
To look cool. No, I'm kidding. So how I find it standing backwards, especially on some of those bigger boats, like when you have the Mercury digital throttle shift, everything's done. For the most part, you can do it with one hand if you wanted to. But when I drive backwards, it's when you're driving those big sporties, you got those big paddle shifters on the sides. And sometimes it's a little easier when you're turned around. You can kind of get a better idea of what the boat is going to do when you're in reverse. So okay, you bump it back this way, you're going to bring the stern that way a little bit, vice versa. If you pull it back forward, you're going to pull that stern a little bit out of your slip. So I think it's just to keep you from having to calculate in your head, okay, what's going on here? And of course, to be able to see exactly what you're doing, see exactly how far you are from the dock if you've got a seawall back behind you or something. But but yeah, so what do you say about that, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just like you can see the dock, you can see the pilings, you can see the seawall as you're backing into it. Instead of looking over your shoulder and twisting around all contorted, you can stand up and face your target. So even like if say it's in a whaler, like say a 33 outrage, right, that's got joystick docking, but if I wanted to just use the sticks, or if I'm using the joystick, I'll stand off to the side, but I'm facing the stern of the boat, so I'm watching what's going on. Like I said, we talked about it last week when we were talking about docking. The bow has to follow where the engines are pulling it, so you don't even have to worry about what's going on back there behind you. Those Aquilas you're talking about, like Chuck's got the 48. I mean, those engines are so far apart that, I mean, the boat will just pivot and swing on a dime. But when you're backing into the slip, turn around so you can see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So you might look pretty cool doing it. You might look like you're fishing in the White Marlin Open, but it does serve a purpose too.
Yep, absolutely.
One more question from the audience here before we move on, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one because I even learned a little bit, with my big trip last weekend. What do the different VHF stations mean on the radio? Steven from Florida, thank you very much for asking. That's a good question. So, well, you've got all the stations from 1 all the way up to what's the higher station?
88, I think, something like that. But that's not for us, for recreational.
So each one of those, for the most part, is going to mean something or belong to a certain group. So, Keith, I'll let you hit on that a little bit. Obviously, the important things to remember, 16, Coast Guard's always monitoring 16. Another important thing with Channel 16, don't be messing around because that's for Coast Guard, and it might come down to them saving somebody else's life. So if you're trying to see what Jimmy over on his 3:30 outrage at the sandbar is eating for lunch, then you might want to switch to a different channel. But all of them are going to mean different things for the most part. So Keith, you want to run through that really quick? What stations mean what? You don't need to go through all of them, but just the main ones here that you need, whether it's for safety or recreation. What's your take on that?
So Channel 16 is your hailing and distress channel. If you have to make an emergency call, you need to call the Coast Guard or somebody, you're going to call them on Channel 16. Channel 16 is recorded 24 hours a day. So if you are in an issue where something tragic's going on or you're sinking, there's a fire, if you can get your name, your position out, the Coast Guard can actually go back and listen to that again if you've only got a few seconds to get it out. Channel 16 is also your hailing channel. So if you see another boat going down the intercoastal waterway, they should have their radio on Channel 16. If you've got a radio in your boat, you're supposed to maintain all methods to maintain safety. So you should have your radio on, and it should be on 16. So if I see Nick going down the waterway and he's MarineMax St. Petersburg and I'm MarineMax 1, MarineMax St. Pete, MarineMax St. Pete, MarineMax St. Pete, this is MarineMax 1, over. Nick could call me back and say, let's switch up to a working channel, which there's 5 basic ones you want to use, which is channel 68, 69, 71, 72, or 78. So if we switched up to channel 68, then I say, hey, Nick, what's going on? Hey, we're heading out to Egmont. Okay, we'll see you out there. If the kingfish bite's on fire and he wants to tell me where they are, which he probably wouldn't, but we go on channel 68. He can tell me that. When we're done, you want to go back to channel 16 and stand by. If there's any weather bulletins, anything crazy going on, local notice to mariners, there might be a channel marker down. The Coast Guard is going to come on channel 16 and make you aware of that. If you're traveling down the intercoastal waterway and you're going through Lake Okeechobee, you want to go to channel 13. Your locks are all on channel 13. So there's specific channels designated for specific things. So like channel 12 is like for port operations. So you don't want to get on channel 12 and start talking, because you might have a Tampa Bay Harbor pilot trying to talk to a freighter and you might be drowning them out. So you got to be careful, what channels that you go on to. And then just briefly, weather channels on your VHF radios, there's going to be a WX. You push that, there's only 10 weather channels. You want to go through and pick the proper weather channel for the area, that you're in, and they'll come on and they'll broadcast for Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco counties, or whatever it is.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, I think one thing that the Coast Guard really gets frustrated with too is just clutter on 16, and it's not to be rude or anything. It's just, people don't know. That's a station that, it says it right there on your VHF. There's a big button that says 16. So you figure that everybody's listening. Another thing, Keith, what are your experiences with automated radio checks?
So CETO throughout the state of Florida and the U.S. has got automated radio check channels. So around here, it's channels 26 and 27. I happen to know the 26 tower is at Port Tarpon Marine up in Tarpon Springs. Mm-hmm. The 27 is down in Pinellas Point. Then 26, again, I believe, is like down Cortez. So they kind of like leapfrog as you're going down the state. So you don't want to get on channel 16 and go radio check, radio check, radio check. That's the Coast Guard's going to come on there and tell you to get off. So go to channel 26 or 27, and it's an automated radio check. So you can just say, this is MarineMax 1 testing 1, 2, 3. If you're transmitting, you're going to hear your voice come back. And then so that way, you transmitted and you're receiving. If by chance those towers aren't working, you can definitely go to channel 16 and you could call CETO directly, or you could call Boat US, and they will tell you to switch up to their working channel. And then you can talk to them and get an idea on how well you're transmitting or how strong your signal's going out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure your antenna's up.
Briefly, one other thing too, real important. All our VHF radios now have got DSC capability. It's Master Mariner Identification System or Service Identification, MMSI. You want to register your radio. So either through CETO or Boat US, or you can just Google, get my MMSI number. So you're going to give them your information, your contact information, and then you're going to get a 9-digit number that you can program into your VHF radio. Should you have an issue, an emergency, all of y'all know, if you looked at your radios, there's that little red button that's got a cap over it. You have to register it first. If you hold that distress button down for 5 seconds, it's going to broadcast your latitude and longitude, and it's going to go to anybody else that's got the DSC enabled on their radios, and also to the Coast Guard. It'll give you your position. They'll know who you are, your contact information, the make of boat, color of boat, and all that. It also allows you to make direct calls. So if Nick's got an MMSI number and I've got one and I know what it is, I can put him in a buddy list. I can click on him. It will discreetly call him on channel 70, and it'll automatically switch our radios over to a predetermined channel that we want to talk on. So I can talk to him right away. So if you're fishing with a group of buddies and you want to like let them know without getting on a radio and calling everybody, it'll switch you over, and then you can talk one-on-one without everybody knowing what channel you're switching over to. You can share your position, all kinds of stuff. DSC, it's free. Get it.
Good stuff. Todd, that's a good question right there. Thanks, Keith. Todd, do bridge openings respond on 9? Yes. So 9 is how you'll request openings and stuff. Do your research. If you have a boat that's close, like I ran a 44 kilo down to South Seas last weekend in Captiva, and I believe on that given boat, you needed 21 feet to be safe, just the way that everything was. There was a couple bridges at 22 feet, 23 feet. Now, do your research and make sure that you know exactly what your boat is going to, how high it's going to be. So 1, you don't cause an unnecessary opening, and 2, so you don't end up like one of those guys that you see that will be snapping antennas or outriggers off or whatever. So as far as bridge openings, channel 9, that's how they monitor it. Do your research, give them a call. I like to be friendly with them because I like to let them know my voice, so they don't give me a hard time sometimes if I'm coming a little bit slow up on an opening. And 9's one of those hot channels that you want to know, and also don't clutter it too, because that's how you open up the bridges if you are in a boat that's a little vertically challenged on Intracoastal.
Hey, I just want to say, hey, Captain Jerry O. Orlandini just joined on here. So he just got back, I believe, from running a yacht clear up to Ohio, up the whole waterway there. So good to have you on here, Jerry.
Ohio, huh? Do you have any experience on that system? Do the rules of the road differ quite a bit from being in the ocean?
Good question for Captain Jerry. I know you just got to watch out for the barges and the tugs and all that good stuff, and the logs in the water and everything else.
Yeah, I remember that section from my captain's course, but I'd probably need a refresher if I went up there. So good stuff. A lot of great questions coming in here. We're gonna get to a couple of them as we go on. Andrew, we're gonna answer one right now. Andrew, I'm a snowbird that only uses the boat during winter months. Should I leave the boat full of gas or empty when storing it for 6 months? So you use some stabilizer, huh? As far as, if you are going to leave any fuel in there, as far as stable and stuff goes, especially, that's when that ethanol will kill your engines, wouldn't you say, when you let it sit, for some reason, you could do a little bit of damage to your fuel lines by leaving it in there and stuff.
I know down here, if you're storing your boats for any length of time, you want to leave them pretty much as full as you can, so you don't get as much condensation in the tank. However, you got to be careful if you fill your boat up really to the tip top full and it's a cool day, and then summer comes, and then all of a sudden it gets hot, that gas is going to expand in the tank. I've been here for over 18 years. Before that, I've ran several different high and dry marinas, and you'd run into an issue where somebody would get gas before the boat went back into the barn. The boat went up on the top shelf, heat rises, the gas in the tank expands, comes out the vent, runs down, drips down on the boats below, and then you got problems. So for the most part, most of your high and dries aren't going to allow you to top the boat off before it goes back up into storage. You got to have a little bit of a buffer in there.
It's a good question. We'll get to a couple of the other ones later, but we are going to go over a very important topic. Got a big weekend coming up, huh, Keith? Absolutely.
You got safe boating week coming up here this next week, 16th through the 22nd or 23rd. So, and I think Friday, the 15th is wear your life jacket to work day. So there's some hashtags and stuff like that. You can send us your pictures.
How convenient it falls the week before, or actually just right around. It's Memorial Day weekend coming up, isn't it?
Yep, that's be the following weekend.
So I'd say good call on getting everybody safe boating and stuff before the big weekend. So yeah, just like you said, Keith, it's Friday coming up on May 15th. Wear your life jacket to work day. You got your life jacket with you? I know I'll be wearing mine to work.
Yep, absolutely.
And to connect with us, post your pictures, post them up. That's going to be hashtag safe skipper, hashtag life jacket to work, and share your life jackets with us. And we'll be wearing ours to work too. But with that being said, we're going to talk about just that today. A lot of boats going to be out on the water. Going to be a lot of people that know what they're doing, a lot of people that might not be paying attention. So we're going to talk about some etiquette. Well, we're going to be talking about etiquette on the intracoastal and out on the water. These aren't exactly the stuff that's written in code. These aren't the stuff that you'll see in the code of regulations. These aren't the stuff that you'll necessarily get in trouble for. But there is a certain code between boaters, wouldn't you say, as far as what's giving people respect, giving people safe space, beyond what's going on with the social distancing, just to keep everybody safe and friendly and just having a good time. There is almost a code of ethic, I'd like to call it. And that's why our main segment today, wish we could have it pop up behind me, boating etiquette, segment 1. So Keith, I'm going to let you kick this off. Etiquette on the water. Let's talk about the intracoastal, the highway of the seas, well marked in most places. Sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where it's a little bit crowded. What are some go-to tips as far as how to go about yourself in your boat?
Well, you're always responsible for your wake, right? So, I mean, you've got a big yacht and you're plowing along and you've got a little boat or a little sailboat or something up in front of you. Go ahead and just have some common courtesy and, maybe slow down a little bit or kind of curve out of the way, give them a little bit of room. A lot of the sailboats or whatever are towing a little dinghy behind them. They may be living aboard. So you go by and you wake them real hard. Then, you're knocking the TVs over and their fans and their pots and their pans and they're hollering at you and all that. But just be respectful and take your time. You're always responsible for your wake. And then that's going to bring me to, so in the intercoastal waterway, you got bridges. This is a pet peeve of mine. Slow down when you go under a bridge. Tampa Bay out here, I can run wide open throttle through them, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's a blind spot. Nothing good ever happens by going through a bridge too fast, right? Slow down. It's going to take you an extra 20 seconds, 30 seconds. We've got Memorial Day coming up, which we'll get into this a little bit later, but bridges and just slow down. Over the years, I can count probably a dozen times where there's been injuries or death needlessly, 100% avoidable by somebody running through a bridge, starting back in the early 80s to just, a couple months ago. So slow down, use caution, be prudent, go through the bridge, get back on with your day when you come out the other side.
That's a good point.
That one just kills me, man. It's senseless. A lot of the things that, accidents that happen,
especially, even the little guys fishing and stuff right around the side.
Yep.
They should know what they're doing. They should know what to expect. I get that. But if you're coming through in a Sea Ray 47-foot Sundancer and you're throwing a big wake, it could put them in a tough spot. And that's not what you want to do. Everybody jokes about the unwritten international law of tonnage, but of course there's much more than that as far as just giving everybody respect. So it's a good point. The bridges, I'd have to agree with you there.
Hey, Brian Slattery's on here. Why aren't you out on your boat? He just took delivery of 33 Outrage.
Oh, no kidding. Is that the one you were telling me about?
Yeah.
Well, congrats, because that's a nice boat. I've spent a good amount of time on that, but we talked about it before. I think that it's the most proportionally perfect in the Outrage series. So, yeah. But that's my 2 cents. One thing that I'm going to talk about here, as far as etiquette on the intracoastal goes, I guess it's going off topic a little bit, but we'll go into this at a later date. But I think that we need to bring up alcohol on boating before Memorial Day weekend. So when you're out on the water, things change. You're going to react to alcohol a little bit differently. You're in the sun all day. It's hot. You might not be keeping track. You might be dehydrated. It's Florida. It's hot. You're sweating. You might not really understand what's going on. But it's very easy to, one, make a fool out of yourself on the water if you're not pacing yourself, and two, especially not having a sober skipper. So, Keith, I know that you're a big advocate for that, literally, and yeah, I think that it's very, very important that the rules change when one, two, 3 beers might turn to 4 or 5 beers, and that's going to be translated to drinking 8 or 9 beers if you were on land, and just be conscious with that. Take the time. I like to drive. I do, because I mainly only trust myself when I'm on a boat. So I know, hey, if I'm not drinking at all, I've had 0 beers, that means that I'm at least in control of what's going on my boat and what my boat's doing, and you can react better to what else is going on. So I'm sure you've seen your fair share of gasprillas and stuff, the way that, you know, people might act on Memorial Day weekend too. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy, because like you were talking about before, there are a lot of situations that could be avoided 100%. And I say that alcohol goes back to a good majority of them too. So
yep. So yeah, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, holidays, it doesn't matter. And you mentioned Sober Skipper. There's a website, soberskipper.com. You can log on to that. There's a lot of great information. You can take the pledge to be a sober skipper. There's all kinds of materials in there. You can get wristbands, things like that. There's also another website, boatingsafety.com. It's all done through CETO, but take the time, go to those 2 websites and read through there and look through that stuff. I happen to be fortunate enough, or I was selected to sit on a national advisory board, which it's the North American Sober Skipper Advisory Council. It's through a foundation that CETO got money granted from the Coast Guard. And we try to bring awareness to the retail segment, to bring awareness to boating safety, wearing life jackets, designating a sober skipper. Have somebody take the pledge. You know, like you said, you like to run the boat, you're that. Then you get in, you guys are back to the dock, you're cleaning fish, you're hanging around, goofing around, then you can, catch up with everybody if you want.
That's what that means. I was telling somebody the other day on the way back from Captiva, when you make that corner into the slip, the engine shut off. Now that's time that you can have a cold one. So, but not everybody is going to follow that. So
etiquette too. How about if you're out on you go run offshore, and you're running and you're going and you're out there ways, and you pull up on your spot, or you're a couple miles away, and I'll be darned, there's somebody sitting right there, right on the spot. What are you going to do?
On your secret spot that you own, right?
Yes. Mine.
It's a big ocean out there, man, and do yourself a favor, do whoever's on your spot a favor. Go to a different spot, come back later, because you're just going to cause frustration for everybody else, and especially, I'm not a diver. If they have divers in the water, you're going to make somebody really mad if they've got divers down and you're coming up buzzing the spot, because those divers down there don't exactly know what's going on up top all the time. And yeah, absolutely. You don't own the ocean. Some guys get really mad. They get really territorial. Albeit, there's a good amount of public reefs that it's not uncommon to go out to the Rube Allen or the Blackthorn and see a half a dozen boats on it on a weekend. But, you're way offshore. You're 50, 60 miles out. You're fishing your spot that you think is yours. Go to a different spot. It's a big ocean, and you'll end up catching a lot more fish yourself. You'll end up, showing that guy common courtesy, that etiquette, that respect, and that's my take on the situation.
And vice versa too. You guys that are divers, guys and girls that are divers, stand down, wait. Don't. There was something posted on social media, I think last weekend. People were out on a wreck or something, and here come the divers and set up and jumped right in and went down on the wreck and everything. So, just kind of like be one to others, you wish them done it to you or whatever. It's just be nice, be kind, be courteous. So now too, with the social distancing stuff we're dealing with, for the most part, I think it's been really, really good around here. The videos I've seen, the Pinellas County Sheriff, FWC, they've got drones up, their helicopters, their planes are flying around. Right now, we're still under the social distancing order. So you go out to the island, you go to the beach, stay 50 feet apart, anchor away from everybody, small groups on your boat, just don't congregate in big things. And, hopefully another week or two and, we'll be in a lot better position and things will be back to normal here.
Good stuff. Good point, Keith. One more thing before we get into some fun stuff here. No wake zones. What do they mean? A common question I get with new boaters is, how slow do I go with the no wake zones? And I think a lot of it depends on the boat too. I mean, certain boats can only go too slow, and of course there is a difference between no wake zones and slow zones. With where you're slowing down a little bit or you're coming to a complete idle. On some boats that might be 6 miles an hour, on some boats that might be 4 miles an hour. But like you said before, you're responsible for your own wake. And while there's mandatory no wake zones, for me, there are no wake zones that, I just kind of come across with common respect too. Like, I know it's a seasonal no wake zone along Pasadena Yacht Country Club there by our store. If I'm running a, 50, 60 foot boat, just because I can, that doesn't mean that I'm going to throw a 6 foot wake on everybody's seawall. So what are your take on no wake zones as far as, whether it's a common courtesy thing or also something that if you don't abide, you might get a ticket?
If you don't abide by it, you're definitely going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And then if you do get a ticket, you better be doing the sober skipper thing, because if you've been drinking, then things are going to go from bad to worse. But the distinctions between your idle speed and no wake zones are as slow as you can possibly go without throwing any wake whatsoever. Then your minimum wake, you're going to have a wake behind the boat, but it's not curling over. You don't have any kind of wave behind it or any white water behind it. And the bow stays flat, planted down to the water surface. If there's any kind of bow rise where the back of the boat's squatting in the water, you're going too fast. That's not a minimum wake. And like you said, speed-wise, it's all different. A larger yacht can actually do a minimum wake faster than what, let's say, a single-engine outboard boat can or something, because it's going to throw a bigger wake back there behind it. So, and you got to take the time to read the signs. Like Nick was saying, a lot of them are seasonal. It's going to be from April to October. And also get a pair of binoculars, keep them on your boat. Because I know for when you go down south, like once we get down to Manatee County, Sarasota County, those signs down there will have great big bold letters. Slow speed minimum wake zone. Bold, big. Mm-hmm. And in the fine print down underneath it, it says, except in marked ICW, except in the marked intercoastal waterway.
Yeah.
You can't read that little line underneath there. You almost need Braille. That's like in Braille. They're trying to slow you down and get everybody to slow down. So read the signs, read everything that it says, and then, take off from, get your information from that. But you got to read it all.
Todd's got a good question here, Keith. I'm in Clearwater Beach in commercial boats run just outside of the channel on planes, so blown in no wake zones, but not in the channel. Do you know if that's legal?
Apparently it is.
Yeah.
They'd be.
This goes back to etiquette, though.
Right. Exactly. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, they do it there. They're coming around the corner by the yacht club, going out to the pass. They'll do it over like by Coachman Park, Seminole Boat Ramp. Same thing. It's still deep, kind of up towards the Island Estates area, and they'll blow that and run right on down there. But I'm obviously not an advocate of that. Just
yeah,
do what's right.
Yeah. So good question. Good question. Let's see what we got here.
Hey, Tori Roberts.
So, all right.
So if you got something on here, you got a question I saw in a little outline you had sent. Why do people wave on the water?
Do you know why?
I'm asking you. No.
I don't know. It feels good. It does. And after a weekend of boating and you're waving at everybody, I've caught myself pushing the shopping cart in Publix and you start waving at people. How's it going? How's it going? Well, and everybody's like, why is this guy waving at me? Why is this sunburned guy waving at me? Because it's what you do on the water, and I think that's what's special about it. Everybody's waving. Everybody's happy to be out there. You're having a good time, and it's like the Jeep people on the road, the Jeep wave. Well, you got the Whaler wave.
Motorcycles, the Harley guys, right?
So it's I mean, we've talked about it before, the band of boaters out there, and I think that, we talk about united by water, united by water, united by water. That's exactly what it is, and you give the waves. So, but yeah, I've thrown my fair share of waves pushing a shopping cart too.
Lisa Harrison's got the answer right there, because you're happy to be on the water. You're happy you're on the water.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Before we move on, Keith, passing other boats. I know that the general rule when you're in a channel or even in general, they talk about port to port when you're passing. Also, we're going to talk about overtaking another vessel. That gets a little hairy, doesn't it? Because what's the right thing to do when you're overtaking a vessel on intracoastal?
All right. So let's do a head-on scenario first, right? So you and I are both, you're heading north up the intercoastal and I'm heading south, right? And we're in the middle of the channel, because that's theoretically the deepest part. Before you and I get very close, I'm going to kind of bob my boat to the starboard side a little bit, a little overreacting kind of, and then kind of come back. And then if you do the same thing to your starboard side, you and I just let our intent be known, right? So it's like, okay, I see you, you see me. I'm going to go this way. You're going to go that way.
What do they call that? Early and substantial?
Yeah. You just want to let your intent be known as you're passing each other, then port to port. Kind of like driving down a road, right? You're on the left side. Now, let's say there might be a marina or a port or something I want to go into that's over across from you. I can kind of go and show you that, hey, dude, I want to go this way, and kind of cut in front of you or go that way. And you can acknowledge it by showing back the other way. So I know that we just communicated. Now that's in a straight on, head on. But now if we're in a crossing situation, okay, you're on my starboard side and we're going along, you're going to have the right of way. The boat to your right has the right of way in a crossing situation. If you all think about it, when you go back to driver's ed, you get to a four-way stop sign at the same time. You let the car on the right go first. Same thing here in a boat. As we're coming along, if it's constant bearing, decreasing range, I mean, you're sitting right there and we're getting closer, we're going to have a collision. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow down. I'm going to alter my course a little bit. I'm going to cut behind you and let you go on by in front of me. And then I'll cut behind you and go. So the vessel on your right, on your starboard side, has got the right of way. Now, if I'm overtaking you, I'm coming up behind you. You're the stand-on vessel, meaning you don't have any obligation to move out of the way. You can stay right there in the middle of the channel. I have to assess the situation, see where boats are, see where the channel markers are, or look at my chart plotter and find out where the deepest water is, the safest way to go around you. And then I'll pass you and go around you. The VHF radio can come in handy at that point too. You might have a trawler or a sailboat or somebody going slow in front of you. And I'm in a boat that's going to throw a big wake. And they're typically going along about 5, 6, 7 knots. And that's like the speed that I throw the biggest wake to try to get by them. I can call them on a VHF radio and say, hey, I'd like to pass you on your port side. Would you mind slowing down just a little bit? It'll help you out because I'm not going to throw you as big a wake. And then, I can go on around and get around them. But if the boat that's in front of you has no obligation to get out of your way, you've got to make that call to safely pass them on either side.
Good stuff. Thanks, Keith. So it looks like we've got a lot of viewers today. We've got between 70 and 80 viewers. So once again, thank you guys for watching. We usually would be rounding it off around now, but since everybody seems to be entertained, you give the people what they want. I'm gonna go over my trip last week, and I made a trip down with a couple other boaters down to South Seas Resort in Captiva, and it's crazy. No matter how long you've been doing it, Keith, how long have you been doing this? You still learn something new every single trip that you make on the water, and you've got that continuous education. And I kind of want to share a couple things from my trip. It was myself and another boat in our marina, a couple 44 kilos, great boats, and we had a great time, even though a lot of stuff was closed. It was nice to get out on the water. Learned a few things. One, redfish pass down there, get a little bit hairy. It's well marked, but whenever you're going in and out of a pass that you've never been in before, especially when you're the lead boat, it'll get the nerves going a little bit. You don't want to be that guy that runs the ground. So the guy I was with brought up a good point, and I'm sure you knew about this, Keith. If you're a CTO member, you can call CTO, and they will route you to a local captain, and they'll give you some knowledge. They'll be, because, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to pull boats off a sandbar that, if there is a place to run aground. And so what we did, and I thought it was the neatest thing ever, you call CTO, they'll say, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, favor the greens a little bit, whatever. After you get to the number one can, go 200 yards out, and you're in the clear. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because it is nerve-wracking going someplace you don't know whether you're coming in or out. You don't want to mess it up. And I think that to talk to somebody real on the phone, it assures you that much more. It reassures you, that, okay, I'm looking at my chart. That's what that means. I'm on my Navionics app. Or, okay, I'm trusting my equipment. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but.
Yep, absolutely. I'm a CTO member, and CTO does that all throughout the whole country. So, it's definitely a service that they provide. They're all independently owned and operated. They're a CTO, yeah, it's a big corporate company, right? But they're all independently owned and operated. So they're mom and pops with, there's boaters that love boating. There's some guys I know that I just found out, like up in the Panhandle and over towards Louisiana, stuff like that go out, tuna fish. You can call those guys up and they'll tell you where to go fishing, or give you that inside scoop on where the bait is and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. You want to talk about the best boat handlers that there are. I've seen those guys do some stuff with boats that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Hey, Michael Gates just asked a question here about, if it's just no wake zones or minimum wake zones. So if you go underneath the Park Boulevard Bridge and then you pass the sheriff's office, you've got to go ahead and get on past Salt Rock Grill and those condos right there. And then there is actually a sign there. There's not one on your starboard side, but I just think it's on your port side as you're heading north, that tells you can go ahead and resume normal safe speed. And then you can only run for like a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile. And then right before you get to Caddy's Pub, then you're going to have to shut back down again until you get on through the Park Boulevard Bridge and then up to like Largo Intercoastal. And then you can jump back on it again and run up to Bel Air Causeway. But there is one little short section in there after you pass Salt Rock, and then drop down again when you get to the pub.
Cool. Oh, what do you got? Todd Crosby, just an FYI, they rescinded a 50-foot vessel separation mandate this past weekend.
Cool.
I stand corrected. That's cool.
And I also want to roll back up here, way back up here. Captain Jerry was just, I was telling you about, he ran a boat up to Ohio. He's got some good information on there. So like here, we don't really use the whistle signals and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there where you're going up the Mississippi or the Ohio or and all around there, you got blind turns. And you might have a dozen barges all rafted together and stuff. So they're actually they're on the horns, they're on the whistles, letting you know they're coming and which way they're going to go. That's kind of it's pretty hairy stuff up there. And then also that's where DSC will come into effect too, because you can actually see, or AIS, Automated Identification System, which Ray Marine's got that a lot of most of your things do. But we can actually probably get into AIS next weekend or next Monday, because we're going to have Jim McGowan with us from Ray Marine. Actually, we've got a special guest next week. He's going to be on there. He's a Ray Marine exec. Those of you, if you go to MarineMax's YouTube channel and click on boating tips and look up the Ray Marine stuff, Jim and I did about, I don't know, 10 or 12 videos in like a 2-day segment over in Pompano last year. So got some time, go through, look at those videos, and then join us next week with your questions. And I mean, the guy's a wealth of knowledge. He knows, nobody knows the systems better than him. So that's obviously.
If you want to get technical, next week is definitely the time to do it and chirp in for the questions, because how often do you get the opportunity to go to the man Jim McGowan himself and ask that question directly? I guarantee you that there's going to be some good questions and some good answers next week for both of us that we didn't know going into the segment. So once again, let's see. I think we got room for a couple more questions. I had a question coming over text. Captain Nick, if you can have any boat, what would it be? Easy. Hatteras GT70. Sign me up. Park it out back, and let's have some fun. So, what do you think? What do you think, Keith? If you could have the keys to any boat in your showroom right now and just go and say drive it like you stole it, which one would that be?
Well, I like the one you just picked, and then we can have the little flats boat up on the bow, right? And go do some bone fishing and permit fishing and tarpon and all that, and then go head offshore in that.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you want best of both worlds, right?
What a life that would be. But it can be done, and we can get you there. So, as Keith said earlier, got a big week coming up. Get you all fired up for the Memorial Day weekend. We've got Wear Your Life Jacket to Work Day, once again, Friday, May 15th. Take the pictures, connect with us, and use hashtag #SafeSkipper. So that's the generation before me. That's the # looking thing, guys. Hashtag #SafeSkipper and hashtag #LifeJacket2 work. Bring it to work. I'm sure your boss will let you, regardless of the dress code. Also, next week kicks off National Safe Boating Week. That's May 16th through 22nd. Learn more at CTO Foundation. That's all one word. And you could connect with the hashtag NSBW20. So let's see. Hashtag National Safe Boating Week 20. And also hashtag boating safety. Once again, don't forget to tune in next week with our special guest, Jim McGowan with Ray Marine. A lot of great questions. It's going to be everything marine electronics. Follow us. Hit that follow button on Facebook, that subscribe button at MarineMax Leisure, Instagram and YouTube at MarineMax Online, Twitter at MarineMax. There you have it. So, Keith, you got anything good?
Yep. Before we sign off, I got to roll back up here. Tim Kennedy. So the crossing situation I was talking about is just kind of like recreational boaters running around. There's definitely a pecking order. So those barges are restricted in their ability to maneuver, kind of like the bigger vessel things right away. So don't be playing chicken with them. You know, you gotta give them the way, and then it works on down to finally where a sailboat, if they're truly sailing, has got the right of way over a power boat. But for the most part, everybody around here is a boat driving around with a stick sticking up out of the top of it. So, but if they got their sails up, then they're sailing. So.
Before we sign off, I'm gonna test you on something, Keith.
What?
New reels catch fish. Is it so? Purchase some willingly. Go.
Not under command. Restricted in ability to maneuver. Constrained by draft. Fishing. New reels catch fish.
Sail.
Sail.
Power.
And then seaplane is the last one.
And then wing and ground.
Yeah. That's been a while, man.
I was trying to think about it the other week. I'm like, man, that acronym. I'm like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Finally, Josh Campbell, who's watching right now, corrected me and said, okay, little refresher. That's what it means. So I wanted to see if I could get you, but
I had thought about that.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Sorry we couldn't get to all the comments. Good week this week. Next week's going to be an even better week. We'll get to those questions. Keith, what do you say?
See you guys next week. Jim McCown from Ray Marine. Wear your life jacket to work next Friday. Be safe.